everyone. Can everybody see my screen? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So today, there will be two sections over the 1.5 hours. I've just got one message from where someone. Just let me just see that. Oh yes, fine. Thanks, Vidya, for that message. Yeah. So over this, next around 50 minutes or so, I will be, doing two kinds of sessions. First will be a bit of practicals, like how we do an interview. And then in another presentation, I'll be discussing a bit of more theory related to qualitative interviews. So right now, the PowerPoint I'm sharing, it's mainly to do with semi-structured qualitative research interviews. I'll tell you what it is, but just have a look at this first. So let's say, think you're driving the car on a highway to reach your holiday destination. How you will plan and what you will wish for during this journey. Conducting an interview is like driving a car on a highway to reach the destination. I'm going to, we'll be actually seeing the analogy at the end, how, it's how we can compare an interview to driving a car on a highway. Conducting an interview. First thing, we have to come out from the mindset of data collection. What is that? See, you must understand that you're interacting with the participants under the guidance of a particular interview guide. What is an interview guide? It's a kind of a list of questions. And that's only in semi-structured interviews. When we do unstructured interviews, as such, you don't even have questions. You just have a topic guide, like what topics you have to cover. This interaction is actually a source of data. The more you interact, the more data you're going to generate. So don't interact with the mindset of data collection. Just be natural. Second thing, of course, if you're doing a semi-structured interview, you have to memorize your interview guide. Because, if you don't memorize it, then, it could become a bit challenging. Maybe because then maybe for the participant, it look like that you are not well-versed, or maybe you don't know what you have to ask. So it gives a very bad impression of the interviewer or the researcher. So make sure you memorize. But this is only possible in the case of, I would say, I think if somebody is on, yes, I think it's, can you, someone mute your mic? Because I'm hearing some background noise. I don't know who it is, but if you can do that, thank you. So, of course, you need to memorize your interview guide. And that is only possible in a semi-structured interview. When we do an unstructured interview, as such, you don't have a guide because you just have topics listed and you prompt, on the spot, you make questions. So that time, at least you should know which topics you have to cover. So anyways, you have to memorize either you have to memorize your guide or the topics. Yes, now this is very important. Test and practice the initial interview guide on your friends or, maybe your colleagues, whatever you may say. The reason being, it is very important whether, I would say, people are understanding your question, your flow is okay. This is not to do with pre-testing. Okay, this is something different. Pre-testing is not this. This is prior to pre-testing. Because pre-testing is the final step, because then you need to finalize your interview guide or your topic guide. This is just go to the, to your friends and, ask them that, I framed these questions. Do you understand what answer will you be giving? So it's like that. So make sure you do that. The participants ask for the interview guide after giving consent. What will you do? So say, ethically, you should give the interview guide. One second. Ethically, you should give the interview guide, but don't actually give the full interview guide. So what you have to do is instead keep a rough interview guide prepared with you. You can share with your potential participant and explain him or her that you may ask some additional questions. I just share an example with you. So what had happened? Till my father's study, like, I had done around maybe 4 or 5 qualitative studies prior to that. I never faced this. But during my father's study, interestingly, two of the fathers had actually, WhatsApp me and said that, ma'am, could you just share the interview guide? So even I was not aware that I have to do this so I then went to the literature. I checked with my bosses, who have done qualitative research for the last 30 years. So they said, Neha, it's best, you just modify, just share some questions, change the format, and you can just tell that, these were the type of questions we may ask you, and there may be some additional questions. So this was the only experience. But yes, I know once it happened to me, okay, after that, I think I went to a school in the rural area because I had to interview the adolescents on food label. So the headmaster actually asked me, it was a public school, that ma'am, आप क्या questions पूछेंगे बच्चों से? क्या आप दिखा सकते हैं? So yeah, what I did, since he was not one of my participants because he was a headmaster. My participants were adolescents. I actually shared the original interview guide with the headmaster. In that case, you can do so. But yes, if it's your participant, never share the original. Yes. Now, interview location, of course, it has to be neutral, or I would rather say wherever your participant is comfortable. But yes, now having said that, make sure that no one, known to the participant is present in that interview room or in that particular area. Let's say if I'm doing an interview in the school, okay, so I'll take a classroom or a committee room, depends on what type of school you have. It's a public or a private, maybe in a private school, they can offer you a conference room, but maybe in a public, just an isolated classroom, or something there. You take the child there, make sure no teacher, no headmaster is even roaming here or there, because then the child may feel intimidated, may not give you natural answers or natural responses, whatever it is. And of course, no friends should also be there, no peers. Now, with regards to, I would say, recording. So what you have to do, battery, if you have make sure, there's space in your phone on your recorder. So the memory backup, okay. And the backup is like, can you see? We are also having a mobile phone, as well as maybe you can have a recorder, whatever it is. So it's better to have always 2 recorders in place. Make sure there is enough space or memory in whatever the recorder and the phone where you're going to store the data, right? Because you never know that, when, one may crash, or, because these are electronic gadgets, they can just burn out anytime, broke down anytime. Okay. Now, you don't have to respond. Perhaps you can respond in this chat box. I can just close the screen. You should start recording just before taking consent for interview. So you have to tell me whether it's yes, no, or can't say. So I'll just stop sharing, because maybe you can just write in the chat box. I can see the chat box. So what should be? Should you start recording just before taking consent for interview or afterwards? Can I get some responses for this in the chat box? Or if you want, you can just, unmute yourself and just speak out. That's also fine with me. Okay, Lakshmi is saying after consent. Okay, I remember that. Okay, fine, Lakshmi. Any other? Any other? So, any other person interested in replying? Okay, fine. So, yes, Lakshmi, you may be right also, you may be wrong also, I'll tell you. So there's no fixed guideline as such, okay? Make sure that, every interview is different, it's new. The interviewer has to act accordingly. So see, some cases, what happens, you've just taken, maybe you don't have as such a consent form. So then and moreover, he's saying, "Arey madam, humko sign wine nahi karna hai, aapko jo hai bas pooch lijiye." So maybe what you do is you take a verbal consent. So in that case, you have to start recording before, because once you start speaking and you said कि आप consent देते हैं, कि आप मंजूरी देते हैं, आप इस interview में भाग लेना चाहते हैं, इस चर्चा में भाग लेना चाहते हैं, so that time you can switch it on. But let's say if you've already taken the consent in a written form, then I don't see a need to start the recording, before the interview, or even, there's no need because you've already taken the consent, right? But yes, if it's a case of a verbal consent, definitely you have to start it before, because you're taking a verbal consent and that person is not giving you a written consent. So at least you will have the proof that, yes, I've taken the consent, and then only I have taken the interview. Okay? Yes. Next. 1 second. Huh? Yeah. Always ask follow-up questions, probes. Right. See, sometimes what happens, it is not necessary that the interview guide you have prepared, will exactly, maybe the person is going to exactly answer that. Of course, then you can question, maybe my interview guide is flawed, but it's not necessary. It's happened like there are 30 participants, 25 have followed it very, perfectly, but there are some challenges with 5 participants. So what happens? You may use some additional probes, okay, to take out the responses which you're expecting. Now, you may ask about the same question in different ways to get the nearly complete answer. So make sure that you remain polite. Okay, make sure that you always remain polite, because you never know, he or she could be another participant. And moreover, whenever you're doing a snowballing, when you're doing a sampling through snowballing, so let's say if you're harsh or you're rough with the participant, he or she may not give you or refer to you another participant. So definitely you have to be polite. Okay, and maybe for future also, I would suggest, maybe if you need more participants in future, or maybe his child or his daughter or his acquaintance may take part. So definitely your behavior matters. Note taking. Again, this is very important. As I told you, since you're using electronic devices, it may broke, they can just, stop anyway, or maybe it can get lost while traveling or whatever it is. So note taking is very important. I had just had I had only 2 instances in my entire last, span of, like, the career span of last 10 years, where, only there were 2 participants, but both were females. They said, we don't want to be recorded. One was very recently, and one was way back around 9 years back. It was a school principal, and one was right now a female food gatekeeper. She said that, madam, please aap isko record mat kariye, aapko jo hai aap likh lijiye. So that's quite normal. So that time you have to have, you have to take notes. Of course, it's not easy to take notes while taking interviews. So the best thing is either you have a note keeper, or what some people do is, once they finish the interview, you have to take the notes. That is also something which you have to do. And I think all interviewers should do that. Reflect on the site, if there were any challenges and some important, themes or whatever important points which you think emerged during the interview have to be jotted down. Okay? Yes. After the interview, warm down, you have to say thank you. Of course, somebody has given your time. It's not always necessary that you have funds to actually compensate for the the interview's time. But yeah, as of now, I've been lucky enough. I always, kind of, just not, it was not my doctoral thesis, but yeah, during my postdoctoral work, I do have enough funds to, give something to my participants. Like for my food gatekeeper study, I gave a spoon, because, we were looking at culinary behavior. So I gave actually a ladle, so which is used for cooking, you must be knowing. For children, I generally give, fruits, seasonal fruits and yogurt. That's my thing. For fathers, I gave a coffee mug. So I'm just giving you, so you can even do that. Otherwise, so, you have to say definitely a thank you. He or she has given her valuable time. Of course, as I told you, you have to write notes and reflections. And very important, which I think very few researchers do. I try my best to do it, because I always put, my research papers in WhatsApp, and, somehow, my participants are connected, late, after the project is over, or I, send them emails. Try giving project updates to participants if possible. Yes, I actually don't give as such updates. If generally my paper gets published, or if I do a poster presentation, I try to share it with my participants that, whatever you said, I have published it, and, or I have presented it at such a particular platform, and you can have a look at it. So yeah, they also feel very happy that, whatever they contributed has actually, helped someone maybe, and maybe, their words have been valued, and that's why it's got published. Okay, and actually some of the participants did ask me, ma'am, which is my participant number? Because I forgot at the time of interview, you did mention, because I always tell the participant number to the interviewee. Okay, because, nowhere you have to take the names. So, so they want to say that, whether my quote has been, published or something. Okay, so that's, they always get excited. So remember this. Now, what does being a good interviewer means? You are knowledgeable. You must have good knowledge about the topic of interest. So whatever you are doing, you should have that knowledge. Okay. You must have a semi-structured interview guide. So I'm sorry for this typo, I just noticed it. So of course it has to be structured, but this is only for semi-structured interviews, mind you, participants. For an unstructured, we just have the topics listed. Okay. And we are going to cover these topics and we're going to frame questions on spot, depending how the interview flows. Okay. So yes, the thing is, the guide has to be ready. It has to be actually pre-tested also, make sure. So you can do pre-testing maybe with 4 or 5 participants. Okay. You're clear, you must ask simple, easy, and short questions. You're gentle, you must give time to think, give time to finish, and do not interrupt. That's really nagging. And I'm sure you must have witnessed many interviews. Of course, they may not be research interviews, many, television, these news channel interviews. And many people say, the anchor should stop, interrupting in between. Let the, guest speak. So this is very common. So yeah, that means you are gentle. Okay, you have to take care of that. You're sensitive. You must listen attentively and empathize when required. You are open, respond to issues raised by questions, and remain flexible in asking questions. Now, what does flexibility mean? Now, I'll explain you. So let's say as I told you, you have to memorize your guide. And let's say you started with the first question. Somehow, that participant responded, but maybe she went into a direction where your fourth question is. So then you can ask the fourth question, okay? So, you have to be flexible in using the guide. It's not that you have to just follow one by one, okay? You have the liberty to change the sequence, definitely, and of course, modify the question so that your participant understands it and responds it correct. So you have to be steering, you know what to find out in an interview, and use prompts and probes very judiciously. Yeah, try not to agree or disagree. Ask if any ambiguity observed in a statement. That means you have to be critical. You remember what already has been said. Yes, this I'll tell you, this happens quite often with researchers, and I could give you one example. Let's say you asked one question. Maybe the question is number 2, and you asked, and the person has responded it. And in that response, the person has also responded for question 4. Maybe you don't remember, you're not paying so attention, you're not being so attentive. So let's say you ask the question 4. So what the participant will say, "Arey madam, abhi to bataya tha, aapne suna nahi kiya, aapne theek se likha nahi kiya." That's irritating. So that also creates a very bad impression of the, of the interview. One more thing, if you know that, that person has already responded, then of course you don't ask that question again. You're not going to irritate the participant, okay? Because that may spoil the remaining half of the interview. You interpret, like you can summarize in between. Okay, so you said this, like what you said, in the last 4 questions was this. So you can do that also. But I generally don't do. But I know some researchers do. So that's why I shared it with you. If you feel comfortable, you want to just relax and let that person relax, you can do that. But with me as such, this thing has never happened. So I never, summarized in between. I never did that. But yes, you have the liberty to do that. Now, allow for a natural flow while interviewing, but cover all the relevant topics, okay, or the questions. Something important, key informants versus in-depth interviews. So I'll explain you. Now, what happens is key informants are people like school principals. But when are they served? When will they serve as key informants? For example, I'm doing a study. Let's say my title of the study is what influences upper primary school children's food habits. Okay, a qualitative study. So here my main participants will be children, right? Because the study is on that and they are the main participants. But my key informants could be school principals. Okay, fine. It could be teachers, maybe. So key informants are experts or particular knowledge holders in the community, mukhya, school teachers, or local leaders. Key informants may not be representative of that particular community. For example, they may not be representing these children. Always better to include key informants in in-depth interviews with other members. No, I actually am going to say it depends again from study to study where it's required. Like for my father's study, I had no, there was no need for me to have any key informants. Okay. Because fathers were only the key informants for me, right? They will only give that data. So it's not like, but like maybe if you're doing, you want to study anemia Mukt Bharat in a school setting, then maybe the mukhya or maybe your school headmaster could be key informants, and the students could be the main participants. So yeah, all other interview procedures are the same. It's only the designation which changes. How you do interviews with your normal participants, the interviews are going to be conducted exactly in a similar way with the key informants. So now, as I told you, we'll move back to the, I'll explain you the driving analogy. So it's here, low fuel is equal to low battery of recorder. Clear road is a smooth interview. High speed, poor narrative. You didn't enjoy this journey. Slow speed, quality compromise, too much of information. Good speed, it's a good narrative. Tea break, narrative not related to research. Natural call, narrative not related to research. And jam, participant picked up important mobile call. Okay, so as of now, I'll first close this, okay? And we can have some questions. Or you want me start with my another PowerPoint and then you want to have questions, like what it is? Whatever is, if anybody has any questions as of now, you can please ask me. Any questions? You can write in the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and ask me.
Hello.
Yes, Mariam. Yes.
Oh
wait, there is
a question.
Okay.
Regarding.
Yes.
I think maybe you can answer this at the end of your question.
Sorry, Mariam, if you can just write it in the chat box. I think I'm having a very cracked voice from your end. If you have any questions, just write in the chat box. I'll respond. Is that okay, Mariam? I'm unable to hear you properly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Any other from, except for Mariam, if there are questions? Yeah, thanks, Shisha, for your feedback. Any other? Oh, is there any other? Okay. Oh, yeah. Fine. Yeah, good question. So Mariam is asking, how about to ask about interviewing an unresponsive respondent? Yes, this is a very natural thing, Mariam. It's a good question you asked and you raised here as of now. See, what happens is, being very frank, you have to first, that's a rule book. I will be doing in the next slides. But yes, you have to develop a rapport with your participants. Now, how do you do that? So first 2-3 questions will not be from your interview guide. They could be just general questions. It may have nothing to do with your interviews. Okay, nothing. Maybe you will not get any data. You may get also, I'm not saying that. But you are going to just ask these questions with the mindset that you're going to establish a rapport. I'll now give you 2-3 examples here. Let's say I'm doing a study with fathers, okay? Fathers, and it's a male respondent, very difficult to extract answers, extract responses. So what happens? So what I would have done, like let's say today I'm taking an interview and there's a father here. So my question first will be, okay, so Are you okay? So how was your day? That was first question. Then he will may say, it's a bit busy day in the office or whatever it is, or maybe it's a busy day at home. Second, I will ask, okay, so what are your plans for the holiday season upcoming? Are you going out somewhere with children and blah, blah, blah? Okay, so when you ask these questions, what happens? Your participant, let's say, even if he or she is unresponsive, actually will become comfortable. He or she will assume, Arey, ye to normal, this is kind of a very normal discussion. We don't have to tell them that this is an interview. Always say, it's a discussion, which I just want to know your views, and I'll be using actually this data to write papers. You can say that, but try to say discussion. Never use or an interaction. I just want to have an interaction. This is the way you're going to deal. Maybe there's another question. Like, let's say, now I'm doing this study with mothers' children on the influences of food habits on whom I'm doing, food habits, influences on food habits of upper primary school children. So let's say I'll go to the mother. Okay, a mother from UP or maybe from a rural area may not speak so much. So what will I ask first? I'll say, acha, maybe seeing her age, और भाभी आप कैसी हैं? This is the way you introduce, and then you say, अच्छा भाभी और क्या कर रही थी? क्या अभी खाना बना के हटी? बात हो सकती है? So this is the way, and then you can ask, अच्छा आपका बच्चा क्या खाना पसंद करता है? Then you say, then you can ask her, oh, आप क्या ये खाना खुद बनाती हैं? तो बोले हाँ हाँ, you make and I'm not even asking any questions related to my interview right now. So these are the questions used to develop, I would say, your rapport. Okay, these are the questions which are used to develop a rapport with the participant. And I'm sure once you do this, I don't think you will have any problems, Mariam. You will definitely have answers coming out from that unresponsive participant. I can guarantee you that. I don't know whether you have tried this. Have you tried this ever and still you haven't got responses? If you can tell me your experience, Mariam, it would be nice. And with others also. Yeah.
Yes, Mama, I have. So I have not directly because the tribal community. And it was actually my tribal SW was interviewing them. So we usually ask these type of, so I put usually the alienating questions, the more difficult questions, slightly. What happens is they don't maybe some difficult health questions like recognition, symptoms. Some questions like this, where you have a very direct response that comes across, but sometimes you have to use a lot of probes to get that one response.
No, I understand that. Yes, I agree with you, Mariam, and that's why I mentioned. See, if you're facing a challenge with all participants, then there is a problem with your interview guide. That's why we do a pre-testing, right? That's why I'm saying you always do pre-testing at least with 4 to 5 participants. There's no doubt about that. But like if that goes smooth, and let's say your first first 2-3 participants are okay, that means there's no problem with your interview guide. Maybe your respondent is not understanding what you're asking. This could also happen. So that is the time you have to use many probes. Okay, but make sure you first develop a rapport, irrespective of any type of interview. Irrespective. Okay, is that okay, Mariam? Maybe you try this next time, but yes, you have to use probes when you don't get your responses. And let's say you started the interviews, your pilot testing was perfect, everybody responded as required, and you started your first official interview. Okay, you went to the field, you did first, second, third. Let's say you are still getting you're facing a lot of challenges in the first 3 interviews. Then what do? Then I would say just modify your guide again. Okay, and perhaps treat those 3 participants again as your pre-test participant. Ask them कि आप ये क्या सवाल समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं, आप इसका क्या मतलब समझ रहे हैं. And even you may give some responses also कि मैं तो ये आंसर आपसे ये मैंने इसकी उम्मीद कर रही थी. So you can ask them also. So it's a bit of trial and error, but I'm sure the pre-test should fix this. But I don't know how many pre-test participants you had. Mariam, how many you had pretest participants for that particular study where you had used a lot of probing?
I did have, I did an initial 10, and then I started, so I want to develop my guide and know how the responses are. So how, because there were many questions, and I had to train my interview because I was not the one who was a
Mm-hmm.
tribal language.
Acha, tribal, yeah. I got it. Oh, got it.
So yeah,
Okay,
so there
okay.
was a bit of trial and error, but I did find, there was, a lot of questions on certain. So I just wanted to know in case there are any tips to understand for the general audience.
Oh, see, technically speaking, see, actually, if you are the interviewer, you should know the tribal language. We have this in the another present in my next presentation. You have to be well versed with the local language. Now, I'll give you a very simple example. What happened? So I was doing the food label study. So I asked the children, घर पे कौन सा चीज आप पैकेट में लाते हैं खाने के बाद. So now the child is saying, nimak, nimak, nimak. He's saying nimak. Madam, nimak लाते हैं, तेल लाते हैं. तेल तो I understood was oil. I said, ये nimak क्या है? I was very new to Banaras, and moreover, this is not a matter of Banaras. I'm working in a rural belt, but this is not a tribal language. It's a normal dialect here. So I'm just talking about a normal dialect. Luckily, my note keeper was from this area. Okay. So now he's, kind of, pushing me, ma'am, namak bol rahe hain ye. I said, oh, okay. So, that child actually for a moment thought that I don't know anything. I could understand कि इसको कुछ पता नहीं है इस मैडम को, इसको नमक भी नहीं पता है. So this, what I'm saying is, Mariam, I know it's not possible to learn all languages. You're going to interview so many places, and especially in a country like India with a diverse language as such. Every state different language, even what districts may the language changes. So always have a person with you who knows that dialect, and it may happen you can ask that person or train that person to interview. Because see, sometimes what happens, these tribal people, they don't want to give responses to outsiders. This is also a big thing. आप कौन है मैडम, आप कहाँ से आए हैं? They ask me so many questions. Even when I say I've come from Banaras Hindu University, here it's the hospital. So we have a district hospital where my job was, like job is as of now. So ऐसे मैं बड़े अस्पताल से आई हूँ. So I say that I've come from the Sundarlal Hospital. So बड़ा, oh, आप वहां से आई हैं, किस विभाग से आई? They will ask you, like they will do a full background check, and then they will let you enter even in their courtyard, and then they'll offer you a chair, water, and everything. So there are challenges. So don't think it's going to be so easy. So now what happens? I'm a very familiar face. If I go to that area, that Tikri area, they know me. Arey, madam आई है, शहर से आई है. So it took time for me also to get through. So I can understand your challenge, Mariam. Maybe if you go second time, let's say to that particular area and that tribal area, I don't think you will face this challenge. Of course, the language will still be a barrier. So I would suggest keep an ASHA or an ANM or Anganwadi worker, Sahika with you, and they can help you because they trust those people. And they can say, हाँ देखिए ना ये मैडम वो बम्बई से आई, आई डोंट नो, मे बी वर्क इन पालघर, बोले देखिए ना ये शहर से आई हैं आप लोग के साथ बात करने, आपकी आई नो बेस्ट थिंग इज आपकी प्रॉब्लम सुनने, हो सकता है ये सरकार को सुझाव दे दें और आपका कुछ अच्छा हो जाए. सो यू हैव टू प्ले लाइक दिस इज द वे आई डू. So I don't know, perhaps I have to go with you one day to the field, and then I can say, Mariam, you are right, you are wrong, let's do this in this way. And moreover, see, Mariam, one thing more important. Every interview is different. So as such, there's no fixed clients. What worked for me may not work for you. Or maybe when I go to also the field area where you went, Mariam, I think maybe I will also facing that same challenges. So we have to find a way out. We will figure a way out. Okay? Does that answer your question, Mariam?
Yes, ma'am. You have another
thank you.
query, ma'am.
Yes, I can see it is Lakshmi's query, right? Yeah, I'll just read it. I had constraint of the area where the respondent was. Okay. I'm reading out the query from Lakshmi. I'm sure everybody can read that also. They were in a place where they were surrounded by the family and not be able to ask. Okay, but how to have the, okay, very nice. Yeah. Yes, Lakshmi, this is a very common problem, which I also face. See, one way to deal with this, just be a bit strict and say, हम इनसे अकेले में बात करना चाहते हैं, क्या हम इनको कहीं और ले जाए? तो you can tell the place, पर हम इनको पास में स्कूल में ले जा रहे हैं, या पास में वो जो आंगनवाड़ी वाली जगह है वहां ले जा रहे हैं, या पास में कोई, you should know the area where is a quiet area. वो जहाँ वो मंदिर है, वहाँ बरगद का पेड़ है, this is the way I use here. And that's why if you have a local person with you, of course your note keeper is there, but they may not know the note keeper, the family members, but they may know the social worker, the Asha, your Anganwadi worker, Sahika. So बोले हाँ अरे पिताजी जाने दीजिए ना, हम इनको जानते हैं, ये बड़ी मेम साहब है, बाहर से आई है. So this is the way things happen. So don't worry. You have to choose a place, and moreover, see what did I mention? The place has to be neutral. It cannot be in a person's household. And of course, see, like now, if you're doing a study on patients, I can't tell the patient that come out of the hospital. Please don't do that, Eva. That you have to do it on site. But of course, when the family member is okay, your participant is fine, we can take him or her to any isolated area. But you need to have someone from the ground level to support you, so that the family member believes you. Okay, is that okay? Who is this? Is it Lakshmi's question? Is it? Yeah. Yeah, Lakshmi, is it clear?
Yes, I got it.
No, but I think, yeah, is it clear,
Can you hear
right?
me?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I can. Yes. Okay, thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you. Okay, now let us move on. I'll just do another one of my presentation. I'm just having, okay, fine. Just give me a moment, okay? I'll just close this, my video, and then we can start. Yes, can you see the presentation? Can you see it? Okay. Yes. Thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks, Isha, for that notification. Okay. So yes, a bit of, not bit of, like it's a bit of theory. Of course, those slides were more of a practical, but here, different types of interviews, what they are, we'll just have a look at them. Okay. And so this presentation is inspired and adapted from the coursework which I had done at Deakin University. So I would like to acknowledge them. That is the reason I'm just telling you that. 1 second, it's not moving. I don't know why. Okay. Yes, now type of qualitative interviews. So as I was going through my first presentation, you must have heard that I was repeating the term semi-structured interviews, because that presentation was exclusively for that. Okay. So generally there are 3 kinds of interviews. One is unstructured interviews, which I also used during the presentation, where you have very few prepared questions. It's kind of unplanned, unanticipated questions may be used. So what you do here is, of course, you just don't go to the field blank, because you have to know the topic. So you write what you're going to cover. On the spot, you have to design your questions. I have never done any unstructured interviews, but they are generally done in sensitive areas, maybe in a red light area if you're doing an interview, because you have to see the situation and talk and see the participant, maybe in an asylum if you're doing an interview. So there it could be unstructured, okay, because it depends on whom you're dealing with. Semi-structured, open-ended questions are developed in advance, but unplanned prompts may be used. As Mariam was saying, that she had to use the unplanned probes as such, okay? Now, or maybe a lot of probes. But I would say also keep some list of probes ready or in your mind ready. The third one is group interviews of focus groups. It's the facilitator, so the interviewer, I would say, or the moderator stimulates the discussion among participants. Focus groups I may do in the next section. Okay. Now, qualitative interviewing, preparing for the interview. Be informed about the potential issues. Learn local terms. Actually, you should learn the dialect, because if you learn the dialect, I'm sure you will get, the best responses and the most natural responses. Then develop an interview guide, of course. Collate your materials, participant documents, like the consent forms and whatever it is, interview guide, keep your voice recorded and everything right. And of course, ensure safety protocol in place. Before you begin the interview, send or give interview a plain language statement. Now, here there are different ways of doing it. If you're doing an urban population and maybe a bit of a higher class or a middle class, you can send the plain language statement over WhatsApp or over email, and you can ask him or her to send it back by signing, or just maybe write a line that, they give the consent. But maybe if you're doing something in rural area, you have to go in person, speak to the potential participants, give the letter. Some of them may give the consent, some may not give the consent. So of course, you cannot take interviews of those participants. Summarize the study to the interview. Okay, this is at the time of interview also, before you start. And of course, when you're going to meet the participant in person, if required, or even over phone, you can do that. Take informed consent, usually written, because, written is always, I would say more legitimate, and, people, say, fine, even, there is what is this? The journals actually require written consent. They will ask you while submission, was written consent taken from the participants, okay? And, majority of the ethical review committees also demand the same. Not possible, take a verbal consent, but make sure keeping the recorder on that time. Yeah, make sure, of course, the recording device is working and it is switched on when you're doing the interview. Otherwise, God can only save you. I really don't know how to do that. You have to just write the notes then. Now, interview guide topic. Provide investigator with a reminder of objective of the interview, how to introduce the study to the interview, and protocol to follow, informed consent topics. Interview guide is not a list of questions to be read exactly one after the other. Instead, it's a guide of topics to be covered during the interview, not any sequence which you have to follow, and list of probes. As I told you, you have to be flexible while interviewing. That is the key. If you aren't flexible, you will have a lot of challenges, okay? See, some interviews may go just exactly how you have framed it. That's fine. But it's not necessary all will go. Like I'm telling you, maybe just 15-20% go that way. Otherwise, it's all changed. Maybe you're asking question 1, then straight away have gone to question 8, let's say. Because, that participant is somehow going to that direction. So you thought, let me ask him this question right away. Okay? And maybe there are some questions where, he's already responded. So you don't ask that question. Don't irritate it. What type of questions to ask? Questions about, for instance, lived experiences. Like, so we just had the cyclone. What was that? Michong in Tamil Nadu. So let's say if you're doing a phenomenological study, so where we study phenomena. So we can go to, people affected by it in Lenore, in Chennai, like what was their lived experience? Aapka kya experience raha ye pure is Michong cyclone ke dauran? Okay. Their perception about anything, do they value this particular scheme or whatever is it? What is their knowledge about Anemia Mukt Bharat, a particular program? Okay. Now, what type of questions to ask? Of course, you have to ask open-ended. Refrain from using questions that have a yes or a no answer. So that's closed. That is for your survey to do. Okay. Don't ask leading questions, and please just avoid using threatening and confronting questions. If you do that, I'm telling you, you have lost everything. So there's no point even continuing the interview. You can stop there itself. Probes. Probes are follow-up questions or strategies that may be used to get more information out of the interview. Examples of probe include repeating the question or answer, indicating understanding or interest, or problems of understanding, create silences or pauses, using a neutral question or a comment. Example, what do you mean by? Requesting an example or asking for clarification. For instance, can you tell me a bit more about that or more about it? So yeah, okay. So these are kinds of probes you can do. Now, how do you order questions? So there are ways. You can either go from global to specific or specific to global. Now, what does this mean? Now, global to specific. How do you think females in general are treated in the workplace? So, it's in a general kind of question. Now, specific means it's particularly to you. Can you tell me a bit about how you have been treated at your particular workplace? Now, specific to go with. So, let's say the interviewer starts with the personal thing, and then maybe he or she wants to explore about the general community or the environment. Can you tell me how the smoking ban has affected your own smoking behavior? Can you share any views on the impact of the smoking ban on a society as a whole? Now, some pitfalls, of interview, so limited or no response from the interview, which Mariam had raised. Ensure open-ended question. Initiate the session with mundane, non-threatening questions. Resistance. Rapport building prior and during the course of interview. Non-stop talker. Can be good if he or she is speaking on the topic, and may need to be stopped if he or she is speaking off the topic. Because, then you have to transcribe so much, like you're in trouble. And moreover, it's not of no use, right? Because his or her time is valuable, and even your time is valuable. Contradictions, of course. It may be an extremely important piece of information. Maybe it could be a minor theme or something, just out of the box, but you should always keep that in mind and make a note. Okay, this thing never came out in the last 5 interviews. Just let me make a mark of it. When you're writing the notes, just highlight it. Post-interview. So this is the duty. I'm talking about the interviewer, because if you have a note keeper, he's already taking notes. But what after post-interview, the interviewer has to do? Of course, if he has any comments on the interview, he or she notes down that, talks about the study, writes about study setting, what topics discussed, important key points, personal experience, how was the experience, methodological concerns, if there were any, like you faced any challenges, maybe if there are PhD students, if you're facing concerns, you can write down, then discuss with your boss, come back to your guide and, say that, sir, I'm facing this challenge, you have to help me out with this. And, of course, you have ideas for future interviews or preliminary analysis. Transcription, typing out the interview tape verbatim. Okay. Then now we'll move on to the advantages of interviewing. Opportunity for respondents to speak their mind. See, in surveys, you never give an opportunity. You just bombard them with questions. You give them a particular Likert scale or yes, no. There are very few open-ended questions because the challenge becomes with analyzing. So here, you're just giving the free platform. You speak whatever you want to speak, of course, not off the topic. You just speak on the topic, what's required. Ability of investigators to reflect on issues raised in the interview. Because see, this is something you have to analyze what data is coming through. In surveys, like you have standard things, if you're using a particular scale, you have to go about, you have to abide by that. Provide insight into how different parts of a story are connected. Like something maybe talking about a phenomena or something, or maybe a cyclone or an earthquake, and they tell you how the story, so you can weave in the different parts. And very important, allows for on-site verification of per answers. In survey, this is the challenge. If you have taken up and if you have no contact and maybe the participant has missed by, a particular, you cannot go back. But here you still have, chances of verification, and you can ask, sometimes in survey, if it's a paper-based, the participant has ticked in 2 places, but you just want 1 response. So you can't confirm that, right? If you don't have contact details. But here, if there's any confusion, in case of any doubt, you can still, ask the interviewer. Disadvantages, quite demanding as it requires a great amount of time and energy. I'll tell you, in my personal capacity, in one day, I can only do 2 interviews. I can't do more. And only 1 focus group discussion. I cannot do more than 2, because if I do more than 2, I'm telling you, I'm not going to go to the field for next 3 days because I'm completely drained out actually after 2 interviews. Next, interviewer must be able to develop a rapport with the interview. So if you can't do this, I'm telling you, you will never be able to successfully actually conduct an interview. And of course, there could be logistic-related challenges which you may not suffer in a survey. Maybe if it's on online and if you're doing something, these Google forms are very quick. You just send it, it's done, it's free. Here, money is required. You may have to travel to, rural areas, tribal areas, which could be very far, and moreover, if you have to stay overnight, so there are a lot of logistic constraints involved here, challenges involved here. Yes, I think I'll stop sharing now. And we can, yes, now, if you have any questions.
I have
Yeah,
one
so I'm
question.
done. Yeah, who is this?
Vidya.
Is it Vidya?
Vidya.
Yes. Yeah, Vidya, tell me.
So, like I'm going to work with the government health officials. So generally,
Okay.
working with government officials and getting the consent is very difficult. They always
Correct.
and like putting this point in first part of the interview, like I want to take a consent or I want to audio record or something. So wanted to know, should we ask this question or should we not ask this question? Because this is the first question, then they'll become very skeptical while answering this question.
Right.
So,
Yes, I'll tell you, Vidya. Vidya, what's going to be? See, if you're giving a consent form and if it's already says audio recording is there and he or she has signed it without even asking you, then please don't even ask that person that I'm switching the recorder on or doing. Yeah, of course, if he sees you switching on the recorder and asks you a question, then of course you have to reply. Then there is no other way you escape it. But yes, if he's already given the consent, why to even ask him that question? Straight away dive into the interview. Because here what the problem is going to be, maybe there's no need for a rapport development because they will say, Madam, thoda jaldi kariye. Madam, can you make it fast? I have a meeting with the DM. This is going to be a very favorite line. I have worked with officials. Madam, can you make it fast? I have a meeting with a DM or or SO or whoever it is. I don't know, superintendent, state. So yeah, but yes, if you've already not taken any consent, this is the first time you're meeting him, then definitely you have to say that, sir, I'm, keeping the recorder on. That you have to mention. But if he's given a written consent, forget about it because sometimes they just read it per se and maybe you sign it. Does that answer, Vidya, to you? Does that answer you, my question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, next. Any questions? Yeah, any other questions? Yeah, if you want, then I can do CASP also, but that depends. Like if you are interested, then I can talk about CASP because I still have half an hour. Otherwise, we can close or whatever it is. It depends. Any other questions from Naveen, Vidya, Abhishek? Then there is Vidya, Sarita, Rasika. I don't know who the other one is. Infinix, I don't know. Yeah, any questions? Yeah, it will be nice if you can just write in the chat box or just tell me, then let me know what I can do next. Then I can start. And yeah, if you have any other particular topics you want me to discuss, maybe in the future sessions, you can let me know because Mariam said that some of you are interested in learning the theoretical approaches like ethnography maybe and maybe grounded research. So I will be doing somewhat in January or February, depending on the time slots given to me by Satara. Yeah. Any other thing you want to know from me? Yes. Any other questions? Or if you want, I can discuss CASP with you. I have no problem. Okay. Is there something? Yeah. Can be interesting. Okay. Yes, Abhishek, I do have plans of covering ethnography, but maybe in January or February, whenever the slots are available. Because next time I just want to quickly finish with focus group discussions and maybe a bit of observations. Yeah, then I think maximum maybe 1 or 2 sessions will be required for covering this, and then maybe we can do some assignments if required. Yes, Abhishek, I will be doing ethnography. Don't worry about it. Not a problem. We can do that. Anything else? Any other challenges you have faced on the field with regards to interview? And you can also share your experience. How did you overcome that challenge? Because that's something which is very new. Because see, I never worked in a tribal area. So whatever Mariam said was new to me. Yeah, I've never worked with tribal pop. Like I've worked with them, but that was just at an administrative level, but never as a researcher. So yeah, I really don't know the challenges, of interviewing them actually. So yeah, if you have if you faced any challenges and if you overcome them, please let me know. Or do you want me to do CASP? Then I will do CASP with you if required. Mariam, would you like to take a call? What shall I do? Or shall I close?
CASP is the one that you use for systematic review.
It's not exactly systematic reviews. You can do write your methods of qualitative research also according to CASP. But if you want, I can show it to you, but you have to give me around 5 minutes. I'll just arrange all the documents. Or if you want, I can close the session. Maybe we can meet in January, whatever. It's up to you, absolutely. It's nothing to me.
Mama,
sorry, Mariam, I didn't get you. Shall I close?
If it's going to take some time, you need more time to justify that session, maybe we can have another session.
Yeah, fine. So then can we close today?
I just had one question from you. I just wanted
to
yeah,
sure. Please ask. Yeah, please ask.
Is the optimal duration for gaining quality data when you're asking?
Mariam, can you just write down your question? Mariam, can you just write down? Yeah, you write it down. I would, because I'm just facing issues in hearing you. I don't know why. It's only with your voice I'm hearing. If you could just write down, I'll answer you. Not a problem. Oh, okay. So Mariam is asking, what is the optimal duration of engaging a response to maintain? Okay, yeah. No, so yes, thank you for the question, Mariam. There is no fixed timeline. See, some interviews may go for 20, some may go for 65, 70 minutes even. It depends. It can go to 90 minutes. Like as of now, I had a highest, the longest interview which I've ever conducted in my life. It was with a school principal, and it was around, I think, 94 minutes. The principal actually, had a lot of views. So I didn't want to stop her actually, but because she was talking everything on the topic, but for every topic she was saying a lot. So that's why that interview went for 93 minutes. But yes, and I had same, similar interviews with school principals, but just, I wrapped up in maybe 15 minutes. So as such, there is no fixed fixed time to, engage your respondent for maintaining data quality or eliciting the responses. Yes, no. Does that answer you, Mariam? Okay. Yes. Any other questions? Any other questions? I'll wait for another 5 minutes, Mariam, and then maybe we can close, Mariam. Is that okay? Or do you still want me to stay till 5:30? I don't know. Okay, Mariam. Okay. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please ask me. The chat box is yours. So yeah, anything related to interviews. Oh, okay. Mariam is saying, I'm going to close now because since we don't have any questions, I expect all of you have understood. And yeah, and anyways, if you have questions later on, you can just contact me over email or over WhatsApp. I'm already in the Satara group. So yes, now maybe, I'm sure I'm going to see you all the next year, in the new year, 2024. So wishing you all a very happy holiday season. Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. I'm leaving.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks. Yeah, thanks.